This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder.
That's the fight and the fright, we're searching for truth. The quiet answer stays inside. You are probably right, it cuts but it heals, it stings but it feels. You are probably right, I'm born to the cure, the pain in my soul. From light into midnight, we're finding the way. From biting to inside, where shadows give way. You are probably right.
All right, what's up? This is MCM, and you're listening to You're Probably Right. This is episode 257. Let me give you a joke, but first I'd like to welcome you to You're Probably Right. I am MCM. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me again. I'd like to say You're Probably Right, and you're welcome in my house anytime. But I don't even say that anymore. But check it out. I messed up again. I started this episode again, and because I am doing the recording and I am the so-called talent, I didn't press record. So I actually did a half an hour of this exact episode already, and now here I am again, starting from the top. It's crazy, but it is what it is. I don't know. These things happen for a reason. You know what? Sometimes I don't spend a lot of time on the script, so when it happens, it's almost like it serves you right. You got to look at everything as positive as you possibly can, you know, because sometimes there's no positives in some of the things that you do to yourself. I did it to myself, as they say. I messed around and played the game, my son likes to say. One of my sons likes to say. Anyhow, check it out. Sometimes life gives you a break. Sometimes those breaks don't feel like breaks at all. This summer, I stepped away from work. 2 whole months, a real hiatus. On the surface, it might sound like a gift, a chance to recharge. But here's the thing. Rest isn't always restful. When the weight of the responsibilities never take a vacation, bills don't go on break, expectations don't go on break, and when you return, everything you left behind is waiting for you, plus interest. I want to be honest with you. I didn't get nearly the amount of self-care done that I needed or I thought I was going to. There were some certain things that are still looking at me right now as I speak to you that I should have done that I just didn't do. I just didn't make them a priority, even though they were a priority when I was too busy to do them. It's weird how life is like that, eh? And you might say, oh, well, you're just procrastinating. Well, no, not necessarily. I just try to focus on one thing over here, even though it didn't totally make me satisfied because I, again, have these things looking at me saying, hey, come over here and do this. You know, but there just wasn't enough time. Time off doesn't mean life stops demanding things from you. In fact, sometimes it means the opposite. You find yourself scraping by, juggling with reduced paychecks, falling behind and telling yourself that when you go back, you'll have to run twice as hard just to catch up. That kind of weight shapes the way you think about your life, your goals, and the paths you're on. And that's what today's talk is about. It's about what it means to feel like you may never quite arrive, never quite quit your job the way you want to. The money you need may not never really be there exactly how you thought it would be or for as long as you thought it would be. The relationship you've been waiting for, or the sense of completion you think you will tie your life together and put it in a nice bow. If you've ever felt that discouragement, that sinking thought that maybe it isn't going to happen for you, then this episode is for you. Now, when I think about this topic, for instance, I think about my brother. My brother was a troubled child. He had all kinds of issues that he was up against. He was a lot older than me. He grew up in the time when, for instance, in the city of Toronto, there just wasn't that many black people. There weren't many people other than white people. There was a little, let's see. If I go through my streets that I grew up on is probably a pretty good example. There was like the street I exactly grew up on. There was just us as a black family. There was Greeks, Italians, Scots, Irish, generations of Canadians, Guyanese family over here. One Guyanese family moved on down there. Indian, Guyanese, West Indian, or whatever they call themselves these days. But anyway, he had trouble fitting in many different places, beyond some of the other struggles that he had. And, growing up, and he got older and he was mischievous and got himself into trouble, my parents always had this belief, would always tell me, one day I see that he's going to be able to do this and he's going to come to Jesus. He's going to have that moment where he's going to stop all the nonsense. But he was a very tortured soul, is the best way I can put it. Not to say that he never had fun. He never got to do anything that he wanted to do. That's not true. But he never got to where they thought he was going to get. And matter of fact, there was a lull where he seemed like he was on top of the world for a bit. And that time in his life probably lasted. And this is from an outsider's point of view. I'm not him, even though I'm his brother. It's like I don't know how he really felt. But just looking from outside, I would say he probably had a good 3 or 4 years of just straight out good times, which is still nothing to shake a stick at, as they say, because some people don't even get 3 to 4 good years. I would say he died relatively young in a way that nobody thought he would have. Died of a heart attack. But the point is he never got to where my parents thought he was going to get to. And I always believed it. I was the youngest in the family. I just, they said he's going to be, so he's going to be. But he didn't, and he never got there. And then I even look at my parents' life themselves. Both hardworking. They got married the year of Jamaica's emancipation, or whatever you want to call it, their independence in 1962. They moved, what did they do? They had him the year after, and then they came to Canada. My dad came to Canada, I think in 65 or something like that. My whole family was here at least by 65 or 66, except for I wasn't born yet. So obviously I was born in Canada. But when I look at them, my parents, my dad worked from 1966 to 1988 at one place. And that was actually CN Rail. Just being straight up, I have nothing to hide really. And my mom, she worked, I can't remember how many years, but anyway, she retired after working for 37 years at a place called Kennedy Lodge in Scarborough, in Toronto. And here's the joke. Well, it's not really a joke, but they both died at 81. Now their ages were way off. There was a pretty good gap. My dad was a lot older. But they both died at the same life years. They both died at 81. But when they retired, people think about retirement. I wouldn't say that they had a great retirement. They were both sick pretty quickly and didn't get to do that much stuff, And I think it reminds me of somebody saying, make sure the only place you go isn't just work. In other words, take time out to do other things, because you never know what the future holds. People save and save and save for this retirement, but your retirement just may be you lying or sitting down in a chair and paying somebody to take care of you. And that's still nothing to be angry about, because some people, they retire or supposedly retire and they have nobody to take care of them. They got to figure it out, sick or not sick. But it reminds you to take each day at a time and make the most of what you have for whatever time that is. And life is truly what you make it. Anyhow, now let me be clear. I don't have all the answers. This isn't a list of quick fixes. What I want to do is walk with you through the realities of these struggles that we deal with day to day. Together, we'll unpack what it means to care for yourself, even when there isn't enough time to position yourself for success without losing yourself, to understand the balance between money, happiness, and to recognize that your own worth, even when others, you recognize your own worth even when others don't. This episode isn't about finishing the race. It's about learning how to keep running when you're tired, when you're distracted, when you're doubting, because sometimes that's the only way that you can move forward. Literally, sometimes you have to crawl forward. Sometimes in football, you have to fall forward just to make any gains. So the first point, the weight of time, our most valuable commodity. We like to imagine that stepping away from work or responsibilities will solve everything. I just need a break and I'll do that thing. A vacation, a hiatus, a break. These words sound like freedom. But when your bills don't pause, when your rent or mortgage still expects payment, when your children still need food, when your obligations don't stop calling your name, time off can feel more like a trade-off. And I'm not saying you don't take a vacation and get paid and get vacation pay. That's cool. Some people don't, or maybe you get a certain amount and then you have to figure it out. Some people take a break, and you just really, really have to figure it out. You rest assured, maybe you catch your breath, but you always lose momentum no matter what. Think about athletes who take a year off like Jordan. You lose something. You always lose a step. Other people don't think so, or like Muhammad Ali, take a break for a couple years because you refuse to fight or refuse to join the army, right? Or whatever it is. Maybe you're injured. You return to a pile of tasks stacked higher because you dared to stop moving, or you had to stop moving. And instead of being restored, sometimes you come back even more stressed and a lot harder of work than you had before, than when you left. For instance, as I brought up Muhammad Ali, it's like he left, he was a champion, right? So he's a champ. Somebody has to try to knock him off his high horse, right? When he came back, there was a new champion, so he had to fight to become champion again. In other words, the work is harder in front of you. This is one of those cruel ironies of life. You need rest to stay sane, but resting can cost you ground. And for many of us, especially when money is tight, rest feels like something you have to pay for. 2 months off, for example, doesn't just mean 2 months of relaxation. It means 2 months of partial income, like in my case, 2 months of watching your savings thin out, 2 months of quiet panic as you calculate everything, or calculate how far behind you'll be when you return and how you're going to figure it out. And here's what that does to your mind. It turns rest, guess what, into work. See, maybe before you were on autopilot doing your job, but now you really got to think things through. You start strategizing during your time off. You start worrying instead of unwinding. You try to rest, but in the back of your mind, you're counting bills, reapplying numbers, calculating how much overtime you'll need once you return. And suddenly, the break you thought would recharge you becomes another source of exhaustion. That's the first thing we have to admit. Rest isn't always restful. And sometimes the most difficult part of life is realizing that even when you give yourself space, the weight you carry has a way of following you into that rest. Let's see. Positioning yourself to succeed. Now, listen, when you're single, or maybe when you're the only person making in the dough or breaking in the dough or scraping in the dough, however, when you're creative, when you don't have someone else carrying the load with you, every move you make, every breath, no, sorry, feels like it's heavier. The decisions you make aren't just about career or hobby, they're about survival. And that just changes the way you approach success, right? For some people, success looks like climbing the ladder step by step, steady and predictable. Slow and steady wins the race, right, tortoise? But others, for the ones balancing multiple jobs, chasing artistic goals, paying bills, and trying to stay sane, success looks like staying on your feet without falling. It's not glamorous, it's not neat, it's messy, it's scattered, and it certainly is exhausting. Now, if you're the kind of person who's creative, or what they used to call artsy, you'll know exactly what I mean. The ideas never stop. The dreams pull you in a dozen directions all at once. One day you want to paint, the next day you want to write. Sorry, guys. Here's a little joke for you, by the way. I started this podcast, as I have done many times before, and stopped and didn't press record. I did this podcast for half an hour before I realized I wasn't recording properly. So here I am again, and I'm still not even where I left off at. So anyways, whatever. That's what I meant earlier. Okay. The next day, you're imagining a business, and it all feels possible. It all feels urgent, until you realize that you're moving in every direction at once. You're not really moving if you're doing that. You're actually just treadmilling, right? You're moving forward. You're not really moving forward in any direction. You're just moving in every direction at the same time, kind of like a cartoon. Focus is hard. It doesn't come naturally to creative people in most cases, because creativity thrives in possibility. And that means you have to be fluid. You have to be able to change and pivot at any second. But the truth is, possibility isn't progress. Progress requires choosing. It requires discipline. And sometimes the hardest discipline of all is saying no to good ideas so you can stay committed to one. It could just be waking up and saying, yeah, I'm on vacation, but I got a goal, so I have to wake up at 7 instead of waking up at 10 because I got a lot of stuff to accomplish anyways. Maybe that's your commitment, and it's hard sometimes. I know comedians talk about waking up at 2 every day. Wish. I don't wish. I think it's a waste of time. When you're positioning yourself to succeed, especially as a single person, you don't have the luxury of scattering your energy. You have to be deliberate. You have to pick your lane and stay there long enough to see some kind of result. And that can feel unfair, like you're shutting down parts of yourself just to survive. But here's the paradox. In narrowing your focus, you actually free yourself. You stop wasting energy on distractions. You stop diluting yourself. You give yourself a chance, finally, to succeed at something solid instead of half succeeding at everything all at once, if you understand. Then you think of negotiation of work and value. Big one. I had an experience once at work. I was minding my own business, doing my job, staying in my lane, and out of nowhere, someone calls me and pulls me into another opportunity, supposedly. They dangle the idea of new position and a different role as if it were a gift. And maybe in some ways it was, but here's what I realized. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Sometimes people will present you with an option, not because it benefits you, but because it benefits them. They see something in you, some skill, some attribute. Maybe you're the right skin color. Maybe you're the right height. Maybe you have the right look. Maybe you have the right type of thinking. They see a skill, a talent, a reliability, and they try to redirect it for their gain. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their invitation for your actual calling. Here's the truth. Every paycheck, every role, every offer is negotiable. Remember that. Employers won't tell you that. Society won't tell you that. They want you to believe you should take what is given, maybe even the money. It says this job pays this amount. You can still try to negotiate. But the reality is that work is an exchange for your most valuable thing, which is time. That's the most valuable thing you have. It's not your money. It's not your looks. Your time, your skill. Maybe people might look at yours as skill, talent. I don't know. Your sweat, your ideas, they are all currency. And that means you have power. But power doesn't mean every opportunity is worth taking. You have to weigh the scale. On one side, you got money. On the other side, happiness. And the balance shifts between or depending on where your life is at that time. Sometimes you need money desperately. Sometimes you need peace of mind more. And only you can decide which matters most at that moment. But here's the danger in that, right? If you're not grounded, you'll let others make that decision for you. You'll chase money when what you need is rest. Or you'll chase comfort when what you need is growth. Negotiation isn't just about salary. It's about negotiating with yourself, being honest about what matters most right now, and refusing to be tricked into trading away your happiness for someone else's convenience. I remember when I took a job once, I switched from one job to the other really quickly just to find out. Okay, I was 2 months within vacation, 2-month vacation, right? So I decided, no, I'll take this other position. I was like, cool, I'm gonna take this other position. And guess what? I get paid right through summer and everything's gonna be good. But little did I know I was changing the area and my designation. So what ended up happening was I literally had to work for a year and a half before I got any vacation time. That sucked the life right out of me. Now, looking back now, a few years back, I'm saying, okay, I learned a lot. The role was different. It had me looking at things from a more technological side of things and helped me be more progressive in another area. But I don't know if not getting that rest for the 2 months how much of life that really sucked out of me. You know what I mean? You got to really, really weigh your options. Something might seem good over here. And I could tell you the other problems that came with that too, but I won't get into it. Anyway, yeah, I will tell you. I was also promised more money at one point until they figured out that somebody offered me something that wasn't exactly correct. So I had to sign another contract or go back to my old position where I already said goodbye and they already bought me a farewell gift. So, needless to say, I had to sign another contract and move on. Or maybe I should have just, well, nah. I think I made the right choice. But trust me, it was hard. But I did learn a lot. All right, next. Valuing yourself beyond others' use. Good old use. One of the hardest lessons I've learned is that not everyone in your life is there for you. Some people are there for what they can get from you. And once they have taken what they needed, they move on, leaving you questioning your worth. It happens at work, it happens in friendship, it happens in relationships. Someone shows up, and for a while it feels like they see you, they value you, they want to be around you, but slowly you realize their attention was never about you, it was about what they could pull from you. Maybe it was your skill, maybe it was your looks, maybe it was your time, maybe it was your emotional care, your love, maybe it was your kindness, maybe it was your energy. But when the well ran dry, guess what? They're out of here. Bye-bye. Poof. And there's the painful truth. It's not because you changed. It's not because you suddenly lost your value. It's because they already got what they came for. They already took the part of you they wanted or needed maybe. And when they had no more use for you, they decided to leave. But that doesn't mean you're worthless. It means they were selfish, or it just means that they got what they needed. It means they saw you as a tool. Maybe they did. Literally a tool, not as a person. And the danger is, if you don't recognize that, right, you'll start to measure yourself by their treatment of you. You'll start to think, if they left, I must not be enough. But that's a lie. Your worth is not determined by what stays or who leaves. Your worth is constant, but people's recognition of it is not. And let's be honest, some people don't just leave quietly. Some people keep circling back. They, as they say, gaslight you, manipulate you, plant doubts in your mind, not even on purpose sometimes, just in case they need something from you again in the future. They'll tell you half-truths, remind you of old times, act like they miss you, not because they care necessarily, but because they want to keep you on the hook, just in case. This is why valuing yourself is non-negotiable. Because if you don't, people will assign value based on their own agenda. And trust me, their price tag for you will always be cheaper than what you're worth. It's kind of like walking into a gold pawn shop or something like that, and you need a certain amount of money and you bought this thing for $700 and now you're willing to sell it. You go, it must be worth at least $3. And then you get $150. And you know you got ripped off. You always can feel that proverbial kick in the pants, because when you walk out with that money in your hand and nothing in your other hand, you're like, wait a second, if I had money, would I have sold that thing just now for that price? And the answer is almost always no. Think about it with your life. Think about it with your value. If you had a choice to be with a certain person who treats you like trash rather than having nobody, and you're in the midst of it, and you're looking back and saying, okay, well, I know I wanted a relationship, but am I happier now? Or if this was my kid and this is the person they were in relationship with, would you have chosen that type of person or that particular person for your kid? Something for us to think about, right? Next, building inner stability, always and very important. So how do you protect yourself from that? How do you keep standing when people's jobs, even your own doubts are pushing against you? The answer is inner stability, the kind of stability that doesn't depend on paychecks or a partner or a promotion. Inner stability starts with small habits. It's not glamorous. It's not the kind of thing you post on social media. It's the simple, quiet thing you do every day to remind yourself who you are. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's waking up at the same time and keeping a routine even when you don't feel like it. These things, they sound basic, right? But they are anchors. They hold you in place when the storms of life are trying to drag you away. And don't misunderstand, right? Self-care isn't just about bubble baths or vacations. Real self-care is maintenance. It's doing what needs to be done for your mind, for your body, for your soul. It's making sure you eat even when you're stressed. It's making sure you sleep even when you feel like working all night. It's turning off your phone when you know scrolling is only feeding your anxiety. That's what real self-care looks like. And here's the thing. No one will applaud you for it. No one will pat you on the back. Ooh, you woke up on time. Today again? No one will pat you on the back for drinking water, for setting boundaries, for saying no, for keeping it in your pants, for getting 8 hours of sleep. But that's where strength is built. In the small, quiet disciplines that no one else sees. If you can learn to maintain yourself when life feels empty, when others have left, when your paycheck is stretched thin, then you're building stability. You're building a foundation that can't be shaken by circumstance. And that kind of foundation will carry you further than any temporary success ever could. Next point, moving forward without guarantees. It's not always easy, is it? Here's the part we don't like to admit. There are no guarantees. You may never get the job you dream of. You may never make the money that you thought you might need. You may never marry the person you pictured in your head. Life doesn't owe us anything. But that doesn't mean your life is incomplete. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Living in a world where outcomes are certainly unpredictable. And the question becomes, can you still move forward without those guarantees? Can you still live with purpose even when your finish line isn't even clear? The truth is, fulfillment rarely comes from one big achievement. It comes from the accumulation of small choices repeated daily that shape the kind of person you are becoming. And it's not about arriving. It's about walking. It's about the story. It's about the travel. It's about the journey. It's not about completion. It's about consistency. Just ask any person who's a senior who's retired from a job. They can explain it to you better than I can, for sure. That job you wanted, it might not come. That aspiration might not happen. You know, thinking about it for a second, last night, because I got hooked on watching these cop videos. And my kids ask, they look and are you watching these again? And it's like, I found it so much more interesting to say watching acting. Like, these are people literally living out their lives. In the beginning of the video, they're normal, or maybe all hell's breaking loose. And they had no idea that day they're going to jail, or that day they were going to pass away, sadly. And it's just like this guy, for instance. I watched this horrible, horrible, horrible story. This guy came over to his sister's house, and he went over there and he asked her to pray for him. And I think his mother, he was on a laptop. His mother was on the laptop, or whatever it is. But I guess she prayed with him and, you know, comforted him, this, that, and the other. And he literally lost his mind. By the next day, he literally killed his sister. His sister was pregnant. It was a horrible story. It's on YouTube. You can check it out. And he did this thing. And he killed her. He stripped off his clothes in the middle of the street, and he's naked. Cops got him, put him in the cop car. And then as he was sitting in the cop car, the person who was telling the story of what happened was he failed to make it to an NFL, National Football League draft to become a professional football player. When that happened to him 2-3 years before that, he literally snapped. Something in his brain snapped. So they put him in the cop car, they brought him in jail, whatever it is. I don't know how long they left him in jail. Any normal person could see that the guy had lost his mind, but maybe for public opinion or whatever it is, they put him in jail. He was sick. He loved his sister. They put him in jail for whatever time. I don't know how long, maybe a year or so. And then when it was time for him to stand trial, they realized he wasn't fit to stand trial. They put him in the hospital. And you can check out the rest of the story, but it's just, you have to know that your goal next week, your goal next year, your goal in 5 years, your life goal, something, it may not happen. But you have today to try. And if you don't get there, or you get there and it finishes before you thought it was going to finish, pivot and do something else. Keep moving forward, fall forward, crawl forward, whatever you have to do, but keep going. But the work ethic you develop while chasing it will change you. The relationship you long for. And going back to that guy, when you look at him, he's fit. He's a serious physical specimen. He could have done something else, but because he didn't get to do what he wanted to do, he lost it. He could have become a personal trainer, maybe opened a gym for himself. He could have probably become a fitness model. He could have, you never know. Like, there was different things because of all the dedication of his physical fitness and strength and everything else that he had, he just gave up. Maybe he could have tried a different league and then come back. He could have tried the CFL, Canadian Football League, first, and then tried it again, but he just lost it once it didn't go his way. You understand? The relationship you longed for, it might not happen. But the self-respect you build while waiting, while carrying it into every interaction you have, that paycheck you needed, it might not stretch far enough. But the discipline you learn in managing it will serve you for life. Moving forward without guarantees is hard. It requires courage. It requires trust in yourself, in God, if you believe, in the process of growth itself. But it's the only way forward. Because if you wait for guarantees, you'll be waiting forever. And if you keep walking anyway, even without them, you'll find meaning in the very act of just moving forward. And even if you get pushed back, sometimes you have to roll with the punches, they say. Roll with the tide. Maybe you have to move a little bit back and a little bit to the side, but soon as you just keep those legs moving and turning in the right direction, eventually you might be able to cut up and go forward again. You will. So let's step back for a moment. We've talked about what it means to rest without really resting, about the stress that follows us even in our breaks. We've talked about the challenge of focus, the traps of distraction, and the hard truths that not every opportunity is designed for you or designed for good. We face the reality that some people will use you and that some will leave and others will keep circling back, not because they care, but because they still see something in you that they can take or they need. And we've seen how stability, the kind that no one applauds, is built in small, unseen acts of discipline. What all this points to is one simple but powerful truth. You are valuable, whether or not others recognize it. Your worth doesn't come from your paycheck or your relationship status or whether someone decides to stay in your life. Your worth is rooted in the fact that you are here, breathing, working, growing. That's not something anyone can give you, and it's not something anyone can actually take away. And maybe you don't have everything that you thought you'd have by now. Maybe the job hasn't come. Maybe the money isn't enough. Maybe the relationship never worked out. But that doesn't mean you're finished. It doesn't mean your life is empty. It means you're still in motion. It means there are still steps to take, still choices to make, still ways to show up every single day as the person you've been becoming all along. So I leave you with this. Don't measure your life by what you lack. Measure it by how you keep going in spite of what you lack. The missing pieces may or may not fall into place, but your story isn't about whether you end with the perfect picture. Your story is about the strength, the persistence, and the courage you showed while the picture was still incomplete and developing. Because maybe, just maybe, the picture was never meant to be finished. Maybe the process of building or walking or even just becoming, that's the actual masterpiece. All right, guys, we're done again. I hope you've learned something. I hope, maybe my ramblings has entertained you at least. I'm asking you again, please, if you made it to the end of this podcast, if you go look on YouTube, or if you go look on, not YouTube, if you go look on Google, you'll see that there's hardly any ratings for this podcast. I think it helps if somebody rates you. I don't know. As I said, some people are just kind of fly-by-nighters and just kind of show up here and there. But I would appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast. Oh boy. Well, at least they called while I'm finishing the podcast. I don't know why I didn't put on silence, but anyhow, I'm not on the phone all the time, so I never really remember to do that anyways. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out. As I said, you can rate the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Follow, subscribe, like, anything you can do to help if you really appreciate it. It's not like I'm asking for money. Not yet anyway. No, I'm just, you never know. Anyhow, thanks a lot for hanging out with me again. And another episode coming up soon. And if you're waiting for something, check out some of my old episodes, because as I said, this podcast is mostly evergreen. So there's always something for you here that might be able to uplift you. Anyhow, take care and thanks for hanging out. Sam CM out. This is You're Probably Right. Take care. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while, understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.